I'm visiting with Syngenta here at Farm Progress Show, and I want you, first of all, tell me your name and what you do for the company.
I'm Duane Martin. I manage the AgriSure traits portfolio for Syngenta.
We are in the Golden Harvest tent here, talking about Enogen Feed, some special hybrids that have a lot of potential for the beef and dairy industry. Tell me a little bit about these type of hybrids and what it means.
Well, some of our producers may already be familiar with the Enogen name. We originally developed this trait for use in the ethanol industry. Enogen is in-seed amylase technology, meaning there's an alpha amylase enzyme in an Enogen corn hybrid. Now, this is important to the ethanol industry because, as we know, we want to change that starch to sugar for the fermentation process, and if we can do that more quickly, it makes that process very much more efficient than it would be otherwise. That returns value to the ethanol plant as well as to the growers that supply the corn. Now, through an extensive research program, we've also realized that essentially the same thing takes place in the rumen of a beef or dairy cow. So essentially, we're feeding that corn to a beef or dairy cow to provide a source of energy. The way the cow, the ruminant, gets that energy is by changing the starch in a kernel of corn to sugar. The animal can use that sugar then to produce a pound of beef or a pound of milk. If we can do that more quickly and efficiently, we make the beef or dairy production process more efficient as well. That's what an Enogen Feed corn hybrid does. We essentially make the corn starch and energy more available more quickly to those animals than any other corn hybrid in the business. So we can show growers how to increase feed efficiency simply by growing a different corn hybrid to feed in their livestock operation.
Can you give an example of how important that can be? What kind of gain they can get, especially financially, by being able to use this kind of a trait for their feed?
We've done some fairly extensive economic analysis, and you can imagine that reducing feed costs in a livestock operation can be very significant. So in a typical beef feedlot setting, we're going to see a gain of about $25 to $27 per head in a finishing cycle in a beef feedlot system, and we're going to see about $1 per head per day in a dairy operation. Now, every feedlot's managed differently, every dairy's managed differently, and we often find that it's very interesting to hear our livestock managers tell us how they view that efficiency gain. For example, we've got a gentleman that's feeding about 5,000 head of cattle in South Dakota. He noted after his first year of adopting Enogen Feed corn, he had about a quarter section of corn that used to be devoted to livestock feed that he now had open to the cash grain market. He could actually do something different with that quarter section of ground rather than to devote it to livestock feed. So that's important flexibility to any producer, and it also means real return on investment for our livestock operators.
So for somebody who's maybe not used to this concept even, what would you tell them in terms of how well these types of hybrids perform versus what they might have been used to in the past?
So that's really the beauty of Enogen Feed corn. You don't have to manage it differently than another elite corn hybrid. These are excellent corn hybrids. We've got a full lineup and can likely find an excellent hybrid with the right trait package to fit every farmer's needs. Secondly, you plant these, manage them, harvest them just like you would any other corn hybrid. You do not have to harvest them for grain or silage. You can do either. And then once you feed that corn, either as grain or silage, you're likely to see that 5% feed efficiency gain. Now, we found through our research that it's easiest just to replace the corn you're feeding with Enogen Feed corn. So in other words, most livestock producers don't have the ability to segregate grain or silage and keep different types in a different area. Most don't have the ability or the desire to blend grain or silage. So you essentially replace the grain or silage you're feeding today with Enogen Feed grain or silage, replace that in your ration, either a beef or dairy ration, and that's where we see that 5% or more feed efficiency gain. It's very easy to adopt Enogen Feed in a livestock operation, and most of all, it's very easy to manage an Enogen Feed hybrid as opposed to some of our specialty hybrids in the market today.
We always like to look ahead, wonder what's new. What's your outlook for your traits that you'll have available or hybrids for 2020, for example, if somebody's looking ahead and curious?
Well, that's always an important aspect, and as we see every year in agriculture, we need to stay one step ahead of our production challenges, the pests in the field, insects, weeds, diseases. We have an extensive research program where we invest about $1.3 billion each year in new research to bring products and technology to the marketplace, and we continue to work on the production challenges that our growers tell us at these shows that they're dealing with today. So we need to continue to develop new modes of action for our insect control traits, to stack those modes of action to delay resistance and keep performance high. And as evidenced by the Enogen Feed trait, we're really looking toward output traits as a new way to create value in the marketplace. And that's really what the Enogen Feed project does. We're taking what used to be commodity corn fed to livestock and producing real value when a beef or dairy producer mixes that in his ration and feeds that in a finishing beef cattle situation or in a dairy. We're adding real value to that operation. So that's pretty exciting when you start thinking about developing new products for the future, where we've been already and where we might go in the next 10 or 20 years.
Before we close, is there anything else we didn't touch on you might want to mention or say to your customers?
Well, I think the thing that I would like to ask our customers to do is just take a look at some of these new technologies. I know my family farms, and in some cases you kind of go down a path that you've been down previously, and it just seems like it's going to be difficult to try something new. Let's break out of that path and look at some new technology that might add a little bit of gain, a little bit of efficiency to our operation. Take a look at some of these new technologies like Enogen Feed. Might just be a really good situation for your operation.
Well, thank you very much for visiting with me here at the Farm Progress Show. Appreciate the opportunity with Syngenta. I'm Chuck Zimmerman reporting.